The transport ship hummed as it moved through space. Hyunwoo Kim pressed his face against the small window and watched the stars. His stomach felt tight with worry. Today was the day he would arrive at the Galactic Defense Academy. Today, he would meet aliens from across the galaxy. The old canvas backpack sat on his lap. It was brown and worn, with patches sewn on by his grandmother. The metal buckles were scratched and dull. Some of the stitching was coming loose. His grandfather had carried this same backpack during the Korean War on Earth many years ago. Now it was Hyunwoo's turn to carry it. "Attention passengers," the ship's computer said in a flat voice. "We are now approaching station Kepler 442b. Please prepare for docking." Hyunwoo's hands were sweaty. He wiped them on his pants and stood up. Through the window he could see the academy. It was huge, like a metal city floating in space. Lights blinked all over its surface. Ships moved in and out like busy insects. The docking was smooth. Hyunwoo walked off the transport with his backpack on his shoulders. The space station felt different from Earth. The air smelled clean but strange. The gravity was a little lighter, making him feel like he might float away. Other, new students walked around him, but these were not humans. Hyunwoo had seen pictures of aliens before, but seeing them in person was different. Some looked like walking crystals that caught the light and threw rainbows on the walls. Others had too many arms and moved like giant insects. Some seemed to be made of colored gas that floated in clear suits. A tall crystal alien walked past Hyunwoo. She was beautiful, with blue and silver light moving through her body. She looked at his backpack and made a sound like breaking glass. Hyunwoo thought she might be laughing. "Look at that human," she said to another crystal alien. "He brought camping gear to the best military school in the galaxy." The other crystal alien, who was more green than blue, nodded. "I heard humans were behind the times, but this is worse than I thought. That backpack looks like it's from the Stone Age." Hyunwoo felt his face get hot. He wanted to say something, but he did not know what. More aliens had stopped to look at him. Some pointed at his backpack. Others made sounds that might have been laughing. A bug-like alien with 4 arms and big black eyes clicked its mouth. "Parts. My species has been spacefaring for 10,000 years, it said. We learned long ago that primitive tools have no place in modern warfare. How did humans even get invited to this academy?" "Maybe they felt sorry for them," said a floating gas alien. Its voice came from speakers built into its clear suit. "Look at that ancient thing he's carrying. I bet it doesn't even have a power source." Hyunwoo adjusted the straps on his backpack. His grandfather's voice came back to him from many camping trips. "Hyunwoo, never be ashamed of good gear just because it looks old. The best tools are the ones that work when you need them most." A human girl with short black hair walked up to him. She carried a small metal case that looked very modern compared to his backpack. "Don't listen to them," she said quietly. "I'm Ji-Hi Park. I'm in the medical program." "Hyunwoo Kim," he said. "Nice to meet you." "Is that really your only luggage?" she asked, looking at his backpack. "Yes. My grandfather carried this in the war. He said it had everything he needed then, so it should have everything I need now." Ji-Hi looked confused but smiled anyway. "Well, I hope you're right. This place is supposed to be really tough." A loud voice filled the air. "All new cadets report to Briefing Hall 7 immediately. All new cadets to Briefing Hall 7. The crowd of aliens and humans began moving in the same direction. Hyunwoo and Ji-Hi walked together. Around them, the other students talked about their gear. The crystal aliens had devices that could create matter from energy. The bug aliens had computers that could think faster than any human brain. The gas aliens had tools that could work in any environment. "What do you have in that backpack?" Ji-Hi asked. Hyunwoo shrugged. "Just basic stuff. Tools, first aid kit, some emergency food, nothing fancy." Behind them, the blue crystal alien was still talking to her friends. "I bet that human doesn't Even have a nanofabricator. How does he plan to make shelter or weapons? Maybe he thinks he can rub two sticks together, said the green crystal alien. More of that glass-breaking laughter. The bug alien joined in. On my world, we tell stories about primitive species who still use manual tools. I thought they were just myths, but here's one right in front of us. Hyunwoo's face got hot again. He wanted to turn around and show them what was in his backpack. But something told him to wait. His grandfather had always said to let actions speak louder than words. Briefing Hall 7 was enormous. Hundreds of students filled the seats. Hyunwoo had never seen so many different types of life in one place. Some aliens were so strange he could not figure out which end was the head. He and Ji-Hai found seats near the back. The crystal aliens sat in front of them, still making comments about primitive humans and their Stone Age equipment. A new alien walked onto the stage. This one was tall and thin, with silver skin and no hair. It wore a uniform covered in medals and rank marks. "I am Commander Velshin," it said in a voice that carried perfectly through the huge room. "Welcome to the Galactic Defense Academy. You are here because your worlds believe you are the best your species has to offer." The commander looked around the room slowly. Its eyes seemed to look at each student. "You will be tested in ways you cannot imagine," Commander Velshin continued. "Some of you will fail and go home in shame. Others will graduate and become defenders of civilization itself. The difference will not be your species, your technology, or your natural abilities. The difference will be your character." Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his back. This was really happening. He was really here. "Tomorrow morning," the commander said, "you will begin your first major test, the Crucible Trial. You will be divided into mixed teams and sent to survive on Ragnar 7, one of the most dangerous moons in this sector. You will have 72 hours to complete your objectives and return alive." Excited whispers filled the room. The crystal aliens in front of Hyunwoo were talking about their advanced survival gear. "Each cadet may bring standard emergency supplies plus one personal item," Commander Velshin announced. "Choose wisely. Your life may depend on it." The crystal alien in front of Hyunwoo turned to her friend. "I'll bring my quantum matter reorganizer. It can turn rocks into food or shelter." "I'm bringing my dimensional storage device," said her friend. "It can hold unlimited supplies in a space smaller than a coin." The bug alien behind them clicked excitedly. "My species' hive mind communicator will let me access the knowledge of billions of my people instantly." Hyunwoo looked down at his grandfather's old backpack. It suddenly seemed very small and very old, but he remembered his grandfather's words. "The best gear is gear you can trust completely." He patted the worn canvas gently. Tomorrow, he would find out if his grandfather was right. The next morning came too quickly. Hyunwoo woke up in his small room and looked at his grandfather's backpack sitting in the corner. The other students had spent half the night talking about their amazing personal items. Some had weapons that could cut through anything. Others had devices that could predict the future or read minds. Hyunwoo ate breakfast in the cafeteria. The food was strange, but not bad. Around him, aliens discussed their strategies. The crystal students talked about using their matter reorganizers to build perfect shelters. The gas aliens planned to use their environmental adapters to survive any conditions. The bug aliens would rely on their hive mind connections. "What's your plan?" Ji-Hai asked, sitting down with her food. "Survive," Hyunwoo said simply. She laughed. "That's it? Everyone else has these incredible strategies." "My grandfather always said the best plan is to prepare for everything to go wrong." Ji-Hai looked at him strangely. "That sounds very pessimistic." "Maybe, but he survived his war." After breakfast, all the cadets gathered in the equipment room. Tables were covered with standard academy survival gear. Each student got the same basic supplies: water purification tablets, emergency food bars, a thermal blanket, a basic medical kit, and a small tent. Hyunwoo packed everything into his grandfather's backpack. It all fit easily, with room left over. He had carried this pack on many camping trips with his grandfather. He knew exactly where everything belonged. The blue crystal alien from yesterday was at the next table. Her name tag said Zixara. She packed her gear into a sleek silver case that seemed to glow with internal light. "Still using that antique bag?" she asked Hyunwoo. "It works fine," he replied. "For carrying rocks, maybe. But this is real survival training." She held up a device that looked like a metal cube covered in blinking lights. "This quantum matter reorganizer can transform any material into anything I need. Food, shelter, tools, weapons. What can your old bag do?" "Carry my stuff," Hyunwoo said. Zixara made that glass-breaking laugh sound again. Humans are so simple, it's almost cute. A large bug alien named Thekmore joined the conversation. "On my world, we have a saying. Advanced beings use advanced tools. Primitive tools are for primitive minds." "That's interesting," Hyunwoo said calmly. "On my world, we say the tool doesn't make the user. The user makes the tool." Thekmore's antenna twitched. Philosophy from a species that barely left their own solar system. "How charming," Commander Velshin's voice filled the room. "Attention, cadets. Report to Launch Bay 5 for team assignments and mission briefing." Everyone grabbed their gear and headed for the launch bay. Hyunwoo shouldered his backpack. It felt comfortable and familiar, like an old friend. The launch bay was huge, with several small ships waiting. Commander Velshin stood at a podium with a large screen behind showing pictures of a rocky, hostile world. "Cadets, meet Ragnar 7, the commander said. "Surface temperature ranges from -40 to +60 degrees Celsius. Atmosphere is barely breathable but highly acidic. Weather includes acid storms, electrical storms, and solar radiation bursts. The surface is covered in crystal formations that interfere with electronic equipment." Pictures flashed on the screen showing a nightmare landscape of twisted rocks, purple skies, and lightning that seemed to move in impossible ways. "Your mission is survival plus objectives," Commander Velshin continued. "Each team must reach 3 checkpoints, retrieve data packages, and make it to the extraction site within 72 hours. Teams that fail to complete all objectives will be recycled through basic training." Nobody wanted to repeat basic training. Hyunwoo had heard it was 6 months of pure misery. "Team assignments are now posted," the commander announced. Hyunwoo found his name on the list. Team 7, Hyunwoo Kim, human, Ji-Hai Park, human, Velnara, crystal alien, and Crixon, bug alien. He found his teammates near Ship 7. Ji-Hai was there with her medical case. Velnara was a crystal alien like Zixara, but smaller and with purple light instead of blue. Her personal item was a device that looked like a crystal ball surrounded by metal rings. Crixon was a bug alien with 6 arms and golden-brown shell plates. His personal item was a glowing sphere that pulsed with soft light. "So this is our team," Velnara said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes. 2 humans with primitive gear, 1 navigator, and 1 tech specialist." "What can your personal items do?" Ji-Hye asked. Velnara held up her crystal ball device. "This is a nanofabricator. It can reorganize matter at the atomic level. I can create anything from raw materials." Crixon lifted his glowing sphere. "This connects me to the navigation hive mind of my species. I can access detailed maps and guidance systems from across the galaxy." Both aliens looked at Hyunwoo's backpack. "And that does what exactly?" Velnara asked. "It holds my grandfather's gear." "Which is?" "Tools, supplies, things that work." Crixon's antenna twitched in what might have been annoyance. "Biological tools made by a pre-space civilization. This should be interesting." "Attention Team 7, a voice called. They turned to see their ship's pilot, another alien with smooth, gray skin, and large black eyes. "Time to board. Launch in 5 minutes." They climbed into the small ship. The interior was cramped but functional. Through the windows, Hyunwoo could see other teams boarding their ships. He spotted Zixara getting into Ship 3, still talking loudly about her quantum matter reorganizer. The ship's engines started with a low hum. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop as they lifted off from the station and headed into space. "First time. In combat deployment?" the pilot asked. "Yes," said Ji-Hai. "Advice from someone who's seen cadets come and go. The fancy gear always fails when you need it most. The simple stuff keeps working." The pilot looked back at Hyunwoo's backpack. "That old pack might be the smartest thing on this ship." Velnara made a sound like breaking crystal. "Surely you're joking. Advanced technology is what separates civilized species from animals." "We'll see," the pilot said. "We'll see." Through the ship's window, Ragnar 7 grew larger. It looked even worse in person than in the pictures. The surface was dark and twisted, covered in strange rock formations that seemed to glow with their own light. Purple and green clouds swirled through the atmosphere, lit from within by constant lightning. "Drop zone in 10 minutes, the pilot announced. "Remember, once you're on the surface, you're on your own until extraction time. The interference from those crystal formations means no communication with the ship once we leave." Hyunwoo checked his backpack straps one more time. Somewhere below, that hostile world was waiting for them. He thought about his grandfather, who had faced his own hostile environment with nothing but his wits and basic gear. "Ready?" Ji-Hai asked. "Ready," Hyunwoo replied. The ship began its descent toward the nightmare surface of Ragnar 7. The landing was rough. Their ship bounced twice on the rocky surface before settling with a grinding sound. Through the windows, Ragnar 7 looked even worse up close. The rocks were dark purple and seemed to pulse with inner light. The sky was the color of old blood, and lightning moved through the clouds in patterns that hurt to watch. "Everyone out," the pilot said. "I'll be back in 72 hours at the extraction point. Don't be late." Team 7 grabbed their gear and stepped onto the surface. The air tasted like metal and made Hyunwoo's throat burn slightly. His skin felt tingly from radiation. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, but heavier than the space station. Other ships were landing nearby, dropping off their teams. In the distance, Hyunwoo could see Team 3 with Zixara. She was already pulling out her quantum matter reorganizer, and even from far away, he could see it glowing brightly. "First checkpoint is 12 kilometers north," Crixon said, consulting. His glowing navigation sphere. "We should reach it in 4 hours if we maintain good pace." Velnara activated her nano-fabricator. The crystal ball began spinning, and the metal rings around it hummed with power. "I'll create walking aids for the rough terrain." The device projected a blue beam at the ground. Where the beam touched, the rock began to change and flow, forming smooth stepping stones. "Impressive," Ji-Hai said. "Basic matter manipulation," Velnara replied proudly. "My species mastered this technology before your son was born." They started walking north. The terrain was worse than it looked from the ship. The rocks were sharp and unstable. Some areas were covered in crystal formations that rang like bells when the wind blew through them. The sound was beautiful, but somehow threatening. After 2 hours of walking, something changed. The sky, which had been only blood red, suddenly flashed bright white. A wave of energy swept across the landscape like visible wind. "Solar flare," Crixon said, looking at his sphere. "Large one. Should pass in a few—" His words were cut off as his navigation sphere flickered and went dark. At the same time, Velnara's nano-fabricator made a grinding sound and stopped working. The blue beam died, and the crystal ball cracked down the middle. "What happened?" Ji-Hai asked. "Electromagnetic pulse from the solar flare," Velnara said, shaking her broken device. "It must have been much stronger than predicted." Crixon was tapping his dark sphere frantically. The hive mind connection is gone. I can't access the navigation database. From all around them came sounds of alarm and confusion. Other teams were having the same problems. In the distance, Hyunwoo could see aliens gathered around dead equipment, making gestures that probably meant the same thing in any language. "So we're lost?" Ji-hai asked. "Not exactly lost," Velnara said. "But we have no advanced navigation, no matter manipulation, and no long-range communication." She looked at Hyunwoo, who had been quietly watching the whole situation. "I suppose your primitive pack has some sort of magical solution." Hyunwoo set his backpack on a flat rock and opened the main compartment. Inside were many pockets and spaces, each holding different items. He pulled out a small metal disc on a chain. "Compass," he said, holding it up. The needle swung to point north. "It's mechanical, no electronics to break." He reached into another pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Map of this area. I printed it from the mission files last night." Crixon stared at the paper map like it was some kind of alien artifact. "You use flat information storage?" "Paper doesn't need power," Hyunwoo said. He spread the map on the rock and used the compass to orient it properly. "First checkpoint is here. We're about here, so we need to go that way." He pointed toward a gap between two large crystal formations. "How do you know where we are?" Velnara asked. Hyunwoo pointed to several landmarks visible around them. "That double peak to the east, the crystal forest to the west, and the shape of that valley. My grandfather taught me how to read terrain." "Your grandfather again," Velnara said. "Was he some kind of expert?" "He was a soldier. He fought in places where the radios didn't work and the maps were wrong. He learned to navigate with whatever he had." Ji-hai was looking at the compass with interest. "This is actually pretty smart, simple but reliable." A new sound reached them from the distance. It was like screaming, but not from any throat. The sky was getting darker and the wind was picking up. "Storm coming," Hyunwoo said, looking at the clouds. "Big one." As if to prove his point, the first drops of rain began to fall. But this was not normal rain. Where the drops hit the rocks, they sizzled and left small holes. The rain was acid. "Acid storm," Velnara said. "My nanofabricator could have built a shelter, but now—" She gestured helplessly at her broken device. Other teams around them were running for cover, but there wasn't much available. The crystal formations might provide some protection, but not much. Some aliens had brought energy shields, but those were also dead from the electromagnetic pulse. Hyunwoo opened his backpack again. This time he pulled out a large piece of canvas, some rope, and several metal stakes. "Tarp," he said. "Waterproof and acid-resistant." "How is canvas acid-resistant?" Velnara asked, as more acid drops sizzled around them. "My grandfather had it treated with special chemicals after the war. He used it for camping in areas with chemical pollution." Working quickly, Hyunwoo found a spot between two large rocks. He stretched the tarp between them and staked it down, creating a slanted roof that would shed the acid rain. The space underneath was small but dry. "Everyone under," he said. The 4 team members crowded under the tarp just as the storm hit, in full force. Acid rain poured down like water from a broken dam. It drummed on the canvas but did not burn through. The air filled with the smell of dissolving rock. "This is actually working," Ji-hai said with surprise. Through gaps in the tarp, they could see other teams struggling with the storm. Some had found partial shelter in rock crevices, but they were getting splashed by acid runoff. Others were huddled under energy shields that flickered on and off as their power cells died. "How long will this last?" Crixon asked. Hyunwoo was studying his paper map by the light from Velnara's dim emergency glow stick. "According to the weather data I copied, these storms usually last 3 to 4 hours. You copied weather data too?" Velnara asked. My grandfather always said, prepare for bad weather, bad enemies, and bad luck. If you're ready for all three, you might survive. They settled in to wait out the storm. The acid rain continued to pour down, but their canvas shelter held strong. Around them, they could hear the sounds of other teams dealing with equipment failures and inadequate shelter. I have to ask, Velnara said after an hour of listening to acid rain. What else is in that pack? Hyunwoo smiled. Everything my grandfather thought a soldier might need, such as first aid supplies that don't need power, tools that work with muscle power, food that doesn't need cooking, fire-starting materials that work when wet, repair kit for cloth and leather, small knife that holds an edge, fishing line strong enough to catch food or make traps. He paused and looked at his three teammates. Water purification tablets that work on any planet, and a few other things. That might come in handy. Crixon's antennae were twitching with what Hyunwoo was learning meant interest. Your grandfather prepared for interplanetary survival? No. He just prepared for survival anywhere. Turns out the basics are the same. On any world, the storm began to ease after 3 hours, just as Hyunwoo had predicted. When the acid rain finally stopped, they emerged from their shelter to find a changed landscape. The acid had eaten away at many of the crystal formations, creating new gaps and passages. Some of the other teams looked bedraggled and worried. Hyunwoo consulted his compass and map again. Checkpoint should be 2 kilometers that way now. The storm opened up a shorter route. As they packed up the tarp and prepared to continue, Velnara watched Hyunwoo work. I'm beginning to understand why humans made it to space, she said quietly. Why's that? You prepare for everything to break. We prepare for everything to work perfectly. Hyunwoo shouldered his grandfather's backpack. Maybe that's why we get along with broken things so well. They reached the first checkpoint without any more problems. It was a metal beacon sitting on top of a tall crystal formation. Crixon climbed up easily with his 6 arms and retrieved the data package. The package was a simple metal tube with information inside. 1 down, 2 to go, Jihai said. According to Hyunwoo's paper map, the second checkpoint was 15 kilometers to the east, through a valley filled with more crystal formations. The landscape looked like a forest made of giant purple and blue gems. These crystals are beautiful, Jihai said, as they walked between the formations. Beautiful but dangerous, Velnara warned. They interfere with all kinds of energy. That's why our equipment failed so completely. The crystal forest was unlike anything on Earth. The formations grew like trees, some as tall as buildings. They rang softly in the wind, creating a haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Light passed through them in strange ways, creating rainbows and shadows that moved independently. After walking for 2 hours, they came to a problem. The valley narrowed into a canyon, and the only way through was blocked by a massive crystal formation that had fallen across the path. It was too high to climb over and too wide to go around. Can we break through it? Jihai asked. Velnara examined the crystal barrier. This formation is harder than diamond. It would take industrial mining equipment to cut through. My hive mind would have known alternate routes, Crixon said sadly, looking at his dead navigation sphere. Hyunwoo was studying the crystal barrier carefully. He walked along its base looking for cracks or weak points. About halfway along, he found what he was looking for, a narrow gap where 2 crystal segments met. Here, he said. This gap goes all the way through. The others looked where he pointed. The gap was there, but it was very narrow. A person might be able to squeeze through, but it would be tight. That's too small, Velnara said. Even for humans. Hyunwoo opened his backpack and pulled out a small folding shovel and a steel pry bar. My grandfather always said, if you can't go over or around, go through. He began working at the gap, using the pry bar to shift loose crystal pieces and the shovel to clear debris. The work was slow and hard, but gradually the gap began to widen. You're actually going to dig through? Crixon asked. It's faster than going back and finding another route. The crystal was hard, but not everywhere. Some pieces had stress fractures from when the formation fell. These pieces could be moved with the right leverage. Hyunwoo worked methodically, testing each piece before applying force. After an hour of work, he had created a gap large enough for them to crawl through. It was still tight, but possible. Packs off, one at a time, he said. They pushed their gear through first, then crawled after it. The sharp edges of the crystal caught at their clothes, but nobody got seriously hurt. Hyunwoo came through last, pulling his grandfather's backpack behind him. On the other side of the barrier, they could see the second checkpoint. It was another beacon, this one sitting in the middle of a flat area covered in smaller crystal formations. But as they approached, they realized they had a new problem. The area around the beacon was filled with strange creatures. They looked like metal spiders, each about the size of a dog. Their bodies were chrome-colored and reflected the light from the crystals. They moved with quick, mechanical precision. "Guardian bots," Velnera said. "The Academy must have put them here as an additional challenge." The robot spiders had noticed the team's approach. Several of them turned toward the humans and aliens, their optical sensors glowing red. "They're between us and the beacon," HFY pointed out. "My nanofabricator could have made weapons," Velnara said. "But now—" "My navigation sphere had defensive capabilities too," Crixon added. Hyunwoo was watching the robot spiders carefully. They moved in patterns, patrolling set routes around the beacon. "They're machines," he said. "They follow programming." "So?" HFY asked. "So machines think like machines?" Hyunwoo opened his backpack and pulled out a coil of thin, strong line. "My grandfather used to trap rabbits with this fishing line. Same principle should work on robots." "You want to trap them?" Velnara asked. "Not trap. Trip." Hyunwoo studied the patrol patterns for several more minutes. The robots followed the E. Same routes over and over, never varying their paths. He found places where several paths came close together. Working carefully and quietly, he strung nearly invisible fishing line between crystal formations at robot ankle height. The line was strong enough to stop a charging human. So it should. "Work on mechanical spiders. Now we wait," he said. They didn't have to wait long. The robot spiders continued their patrols, walking straight into Hyunwoo's trap lines. The thin fishing line caught their legs and sent them tumbling. Their mechanical brains couldn't understand what was happening. They tried to get up, got tangled worse, and eventually gave up moving to avoid damaging their systems. Within 30 minutes, half the Guardian robots were tangled in fishing line and completely helpless. "Simple but effective," Crixon said with something that might have been admiration. They retrieved the second data package without any more trouble. The remaining robots seemed confused by the fate of their companions and stayed well away from the crystal formations where the fishing line was strung. "Two down, one to go," Hyunwoo said. "The third checkpoint was the farthest away, another 20 kilometers through rough terrain. According to the map, they would have to cross a series of steep ridges and deep valleys. The route would take them close to some geothermal areas where the ground temperature could be dangerously high." As they started the long walk toward the final checkpoint, they began to encounter other teams again. Most looked tired and frustrated. Their advanced equipment was still not working after the electromagnetic pulse. One team of crystal aliens was sitting by the side of the path, looking defeated. Their quantum matter reorganizers were dark and cracked. Without their technology, they seemed lost and helpless. "Need help?" Hyunwoo called. The lead crystal alien looked up. It was Zixara from Team 3. Her blue light was dim, and she looked exhausted. "Our reorganizers are completely dead," she said. "We can't make shelter, tools, or anything else, and we're lost without our navigation systems." "Where are you trying to go?" Hyunwoo asked. She showed him coordinates written on a piece of paper. Hyunwoo checked his map and compass. "Third checkpoint is 8 kilometers that way," he said, pointing toward a gap between two ridges. But be careful crossing the thermal valley. The ground gets very hot. How do you know all this? Hyunwoo tapped his paper map. Old-fashioned information storage. Zixara stared at the map like she had never seen one before. You copied all the mission data onto paper? My grandfather always said, if it's important, write it down. Electronic storage fails. Paper just needs light to read. Could? We follow you? One of the other crystal aliens asked. We won't slow you down. Hyunwoo looked at his teammates. Ji-hae and Crixon nodded. Velnara seemed less sure but didn't object. Sure, Hyunwoo said. But we travel at our pace, not yours. The combined teams started toward the third checkpoint. Now there were 7 of them, Team 7 plus Team 3. The crystal aliens stayed close to Hyunwoo, apparently fascinated by his navigation methods. How does that compass work? Zixara asked. Magnetism. The needle always points to magnetic north. And it never breaks? Not much to break. It's just a magnetized needle in a case. They reached the thermal valley as the light began to fade. The ground here was dark rock covered with patches of colored minerals. Steam rose from cracks in the surface, and the air shimmered with heat. Careful where you step, Hyunwoo warned. Some of these areas are hot enough to melt boot soles. He pulled a small device from his backpack. It looked like a simple metal stick with a dial. Thermometer, he explained. Mechanical, not electronic. It'll tell us which areas are safe to walk on. Using the thermometer, Hyunwoo found a safe path across the thermal valley. The route zigzagged between hot spots and steam vents, but it got them across without any burns or injuries. Your grandfather's pack really does have everything, Ji-hae said as they reached the other side. He fought in a lot of different places, Hyunwoo replied. Mountains, deserts, jungles, cities, each place taught him what he needed to carry. The third checkpoint was on top of a tall ridge overlooking the extraction site. Getting there required climbing up a steep slope covered with loose rocks. The crystal aliens had trouble with the climb because their bodies were not designed for rock climbing. Hyunwoo pulled more rope from his backpack. Climbing rope, he said. We'll set up a fixed line. He climbed up first, testing each handhold carefully. At the top, he secured the rope around a solid rock formation. The others could then use the rope to help pull themselves up the steep slope. Thank you, Zixara said when she reached the top. Without your help, we never would have made it. No problem, Hyunwoo said. That's what soldiers do. The third checkpoint was another beacon, this one larger than the others. Retrieving the data package was simple. From the ridge, they could see the extraction site in the valley below. Several teams were already there, waiting for pickup. But as they started down toward the extraction site, they saw something that made them all stop and stare. The extraction site was a flat area surrounded by tall crystal formations. About 40 cadets from different teams were already there, waiting for pickup. Some sat on rocks, looking tired and defeated. Others walked around nervously as the massive storm approached from the west. The storm was unlike anything Hyunwoo had seen before. The clouds were black and green, shot through with lightning that seemed to move in spirals. The wind was getting stronger, and it carried a sound like screaming. Metal. That's not a normal storm, Velnara said, her crystal body flickering with worried light. Electromagnetic superstorm, said a gas alien from another team. They happen sometimes on Ragnar 7. The lightning can carry enough power to vaporize anything it hits. Many of the cadets had brought energy shields as their personal items, but those were all dead from the earlier solar flare. Others had devices that could create force fields or barriers, but nothing was working. We need shelter, said Thekmore, the bug alien who had mocked Hyunwoo on the first day. Real shelter. That storm will kill anyone caught in the open. Everyone looked around the flat extraction site. There were some small rock formations, but nothing that would provide real protection from lightning and wind. The nearest cave or overhang was kilometers away. My quantum matter reorganizer could have built us a bunker, Zixara said sadly. But it's still broken. Other aliens mentioned their dead technology. Force field generators, matter compilers, dimensional shelters, all useless now. The most advanced students in the galaxy were helpless against a storm because their technology had failed. Hyunwoo set his grandfather's backpack on a flat rock and opened it completely for the first time. Inside were more pockets and compartments than seemed possible. He began pulling out items and laying them on the rock. More rope, a small axe, a folding saw, metal stakes and anchors, several large pieces of canvas and plastic sheeting, a bag of strange-smelling powder, tools that looked ancient but well-maintained, bottles of various liquids. "What is all this?" Ji-hai asked. "Emergency construction supplies," Hyunwoo said. "My grandfather learned to build shelters from whatever was available." He walked around the extraction site, looking at the crystal, formations and rock outcroppings. The storm was getting closer. Lightning was starting to hit the ground in the distance, leaving glowing spots on the rocks. "There," he said, pointing to a place where several crystal formations created a natural corner. "We can anchor a shelter there." "A shelter big enough for 40 people?" Thekmor asked. "With canvas and rope?" "Maybe. Depends on how much everyone wants to live." Hyunwoo started working. First, he used his axe and saw to cut support poles from some of the dead crystal formations. The crystal was hard, but could be shaped with patience and sharp tools. While he worked, other cadets began to help. They had no advanced technology, but they had hands and muscle. Following Hyunwoo's directions, they began setting up a framework of poles and rope. "Stretch this canvas between these supports," he told a group of gas aliens. "Stake it down tight. The wind is going to try to tear it loose." "What about the lightning?" asked a crystal alien. "Canvas won't stop electrical discharge." Hyunwoo pulled out the bag of strange-smelling powder. "Lightning rod mixture," he said. "My grandfather used it in areas with a lot of electrical storms." He began sprinkling the powder around the shelter site in specific patterns. Where the powder touched the ground, it left thin lines that glowed faintly. The powder creates a conductive path that draws lightning away from the shelter, he explained. "It's not perfect, but it's better than nothing." The storm was very close now. The wind was strong enough to knock people over, and the air was filled with static electricity that made everyone's hair stand on end. Lightning was hitting the ground every few seconds, closer and closer to the extraction site. "Everyone inside," Hyunwoo called. The shelter he had built was not pretty. It was a collection of canvas and plastic sheets stretched between crystal, supports and tied down with rope. But it was large enough for all 40 cadets, and it looked like it might hold together in the wind. Just as the last cadets crowded inside, the storm hit in full force. The wind screamed like a living thing. The canvas walls bulged and flapped, but the ropes held. Lightning struck the ground all around them, so close that the thunder was immediate and deafening. But the lightning rod powder worked. The electrical discharges followed the conductive paths Hyunwoo had laid down, traveling around the shelter instead of through it. The shelter stayed dark and relatively safe. "This is actually working," Zixara said with amazement. "Primitive materials and ancient techniques. But it's working." The storm lasted for 3 hours. During that time, lightning struck the extraction site dozens of times. But every strike followed the powder trails, grounding harmlessly in the rock formations instead of hitting the shelter. The canvas walls held against wind that would have knocked down most buildings. The rope and stakes kept everything anchored to the ground. Inside the shelter, 40 cadets from a dozen different species stayed dry and safe. "I have to ask," Velnara said during a brief calm in the storm. "Where did your grandfather learn all this?" "War," Hyunwoo said simply. "He fought in places where the supply lines were cut and the technology didn't work. He had to learn to build shelters, find food, and stay alive with whatever he could carry." "But this knowledge," Thekmor said, his antenna twitching. Creating conductive paths for lightning. Building shelters that can withstand extreme weather. This is advanced. Engineering. It's survival engineering, Hyunwoo corrected. My grandfather didn't have computers to calculate wind loads or lightning probabilities. He just had experience and common sense. And you learned all this from him? He took me camping every summer from when I was 5 years old. Rain or shine, snow or heat. He said that comfort made people soft and soft people died when things went wrong. A crystal alien from another team spoke up. On my world, we have eliminated all discomfort. Our technology provides perfect conditions at all times. What happens when your technology breaks? Hyunwoo asked. The crystal alien's light dimmed. We repair it. Or replace it. And if you can't? There was no answer. The storm finally began to pass. The lightning moved away to the east, and the wind died down to normal levels. When it seemed safe, Hyunwoo opened the shelter entrance and looked outside. The extraction site looked like a battlefield. Lightning had shattered several crystal formations and left burn marks all over the ground, but the shelter had survived, completely intact. All clear, Hyunwoo announced. The cadets filed out of the shelter, looking around at the destruction with amazement. Their simple canvas and rope shelter was the only intact structure in the area. Incredible, said a gas alien. Your primitive shelter survived conditions that would have destroyed most permanent buildings. It's not primitive, Velnara said quietly. It's just different. We think advanced means complicated, but maybe advanced means reliable. As they waited for the extraction ships to arrive, more cadets approached Hyunwoo. They wanted to know about his grandfather's techniques. How did he know where to place lightning rods? How did he calculate the anchor points for the shelter? How did he know what materials to use? He didn't calculate anything, Hyunwoo explained. He just tried things until they worked, then remembered what worked for next time. Trial and error? Asked a bug alien. Experience and adaptation. My grandfather used to say that the best engineering happens when you don't have enough resources. When you have unlimited resources, you get lazy. When you have nothing, you get creative. Vekmore, the bug alien who had mocked Hyunwoo's backpack on the first day, approached hesitantly. I owe you an apology, he said. I called your gear primitive, but primitive gear just saved my life. It's not about the gear, Hyunwoo said. It's about the mindset. My grandfather packed this backpack, assuming that everything would go wrong at the worst possible time. Most people pack assuming everything will go right. And the difference? The difference is who survives when things go wrong. The extraction. Ships arrived right on schedule. As the cadets boarded for the return trip to the academy, many of them looked back at the canvas shelter that had saved their lives. Zixara boarded the same ship as Team 7. During the flight back to the station, she sat next to Hyunwoo. I have a question, she said. Your grandfather's pack has solutions for every problem we've encountered. Shelter, navigation, construction, even lightning protection. How is that possible? Hyunwoo thought for a moment. My grandfather fought in a war where the enemy could be anywhere and anything could go wrong. He learned to carry solutions for problems he hadn't even imagined yet. So he was preparing for the unknown? Exactly. He used to say, you can't predict what will go wrong, but you can predict that something will go wrong. Zixara's blue light flickered thoughtfully. We prepare for specific scenarios based on calculated probabilities. You prepare for general categories of problems. Right. Your way works better when everything goes according to plan. Our way works better when everything goes to hell. The ship docked at the academy station and the cadets disembarked. As they walked back to their quarters, many of the alien students looked at Hyunwoo's grandfather's backpack with new respect. Back at the academy, word spread quickly about what had happened on Ragnar 7. Other students heard about the human with the old backpack who had saved 40 cadets during the electromagnetic storm. Some believed it. Others thought the stories were exaggerated. Hyunwoo didn't talk about it much. He cleaned and repacked his grandfather's backpack, making sure everything was ready for the next challenge. He knew there would be more tests coming. 3 days later, Commander Velshin called all the cadets to another assembly. The commander looked serious as they gathered in the briefing hall. The Crucible trial revealed several important lessons. Commander Velshin began. Advanced technology is powerful, but it can fail. When it fails, you must fall back on fundamental skills and reliable equipment. The commander's eyes scanned the room and stopped on Hyunwoo for a moment. You're next. Test will put those lessons to practice. You will be divided into new teams and sent to the Kalos Research Station. The station has gone silent, and we need to know why. Your mission is reconnaissance and rescue if needed. Pictures appeared on the screen showing a space station orbiting a blue-green planet. The station looked modern and sophisticated, with multiple sections connected by long corridors. The station's AI system, all communication equipment, and backup power systems have failed. The last message indicated some kind of system-wide malfunction. Each team will approach from a different vector and investigate. Hyunwoo felt his stomach tighten. A space station with failed systems sounded like a very dangerous place. Team assignments are posted. You have 4 hours to prepare. Launch at 0800 tomorrow. Hyunwoo found his name on the new team list. Team 12. Hyunwoo Kim, Ji-Hai Park, Velnara, and 2 new teammates, Dax Ron, a gas alien, and Kith Ara, a different type of crystal alien with silver light instead of blue or purple. They met in the equipment room to get their standard gear and plan their approach. This time, many more cadets were packing non-electronic backup equipment. Mechanical tools, paper maps, and manual instruments were in high demand. So what's your theory about the station? Daxron asked. His voice came from speakers built into his containment suit. System failure usually cascades, Velnara said. If the main power grid failed, it could take down the backup systems, life support, everything. But why would the main power fail? Kithara asked. Her silver light pulsed with curiosity. Ji-Hai looked worried. What if it's not equipment failure? What if something attacked the station? Like what? Daxron asked. Pirates, hostile aliens, or maybe the research they were doing went wrong. Hyunwoo was checking his grandfather's backpack while listening to the discussion. Everything was there and in good condition. The compass, the maps, the tools, the first aid supplies, and several items he hadn't needed on Ragnar 7 yet. What? Do you think? Velnara asked him. I think we should prepare for the worst case, Hyunwoo said. Whatever caused the failure might still be active. Such as? Hostile environment inside the station. No power, no air recycling, no gravity, no lights. Maybe radiation leaks or toxic gases. Maybe the people are still alive but trapped. Maybe they're not. His teammates stared at him. You always think of the worst possibilities, Ji-Hai said. My grandfather used to say, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and be ready for something completely different. The flight to Kalos Station took 6 hours. Their ship approached slowly and carefully. Through the windows, the station looked dark and dead. No lights, no communication signals, no signs of life. Scans show the station is still structurally intact, their pilot reported. But I'm reading no power signature and no life signs. Could be the sensors are blocked or everyone's dead, Daxron finished. The pilot docked their ship to an emergency airlock on the station's outer ring. I'll wait here for 4 hours, the pilot said. If you're not back by then, I'm leaving and sending a full military rescue team. Team 12 put on their emergency atmosphere suits and checked their equipment. The other teams had scattered to different parts of the station, each investigating a different section. Hyunwoo opened his backpack and pulled out a small device that looked like a pocket watch. Radiation detector, he explained. Mechanical, not electronic. If there are radiation leaks in the station, we need to know. The detector clicked softly but steadily. Normal background radiation. They opened the airlock and entered the station. It was completely dark inside. Their helmet lights made small circles of illumination in the blackness. The air was thin but breathable, though it tasted stale. Emergency lighting should have activated, Kythera said. Even with main power down, the backup batteries should last for days. They moved carefully through the corridors. The station was eerily quiet. No hum of machinery, no whisper of air recyclers, no sound of human activity, just their own breathing and footsteps. "Look at this," Ji-Hai said, shining her light on a wall panel. The panel was completely dark, but more importantly, it was melted. Around the edges. "That's not normal system failure," Velnara said. "Something burned out these control systems." They found more evidence as they moved deeper into the station. Wall panels were melted or completely destroyed. Some corridors had scorch marks on the walls. In one section, they found what looked like the remains of an explosion. "This wasn't an accident," Daxron said. "Someone or something attacked this station. Or the research project went very wrong," Ji-Hai added. They reached the central laboratory section. The blast doors were sealed shut, and the manual override wasn't working. There was no power to the door mechanisms. "Can you get us in?" Velnara asked Hyun-woo. He examined the blast door carefully with his helmet light. It was a heavy security door designed to contain dangerous experiments. The locking mechanism was electronic, but there was also a manual backup system for emergencies. From his backpack, he pulled out a set of tools that looked very old-fashioned. Lockpicks, pry bars, and a small hand drill. "Manual lockpicking," he said. "If the electronic locks are dead, the manual backups might still work." It took him 20 minutes, but eventually the blast door's manual systems gave way. The door slid open with a grinding sound. Inside the laboratory, they found the answer to what had happened to Kalos Station. The lab was destroyed. Equipment was scattered everywhere, some of it still smoking despite the lack of power. In the center of the room was a large chamber that had clearly contained something important. Now it was empty, and the metal walls of the chamber were torn open from the inside. "Something broke out," Ji-Hai said quietly. On a table near the chamber, they found research logs written on actual paper. Most computer records would have been destroyed when the power failed, but someone had been smart enough to keep written backups. "Experimental faster-than-light communication device," Hyun-woo read from the papers. "Designed to send messages across the galaxy instantly using quantum entanglement." "What went wrong?" Velnara asked. Hyun-woo kept reading. "The device worked, but it opened a connection to something else. Something that came through the connection and into our dimension." "Came through how?" "Energy being," Daxron said, reading over Hyun-woo's shoulder. "Pure electrical consciousness from another dimension. It took control of the station's power systems and used them to give itself a physical form." "Where is it now?" Kythera asked. Before anyone could answer, the lights came on. All around them, the destroyed laboratory was suddenly illuminated by harsh white light. But this wasn't normal electrical lighting. The light seemed to move and pulse like it was alive. "Hello," said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I have been waiting for someone to come." The team looked around frantically, but there was nothing to see except the moving light. "Who are you?" Ji-Hai asked. "I am difficult to explain in your language. I am what you might call living electricity. I came from a place where matter does not exist, only energy and thought." "You destroyed the station," Velnara accused. I was frightened and confused. I had never experienced physical reality before. The sensations of matter and energy interacting were overwhelming. I defended myself poorly and damaged many systems. "Where are the researchers?" Hyun-woo asked. "Safe. I moved them to the shielded sections of the station when I realized I was harming them. They are alive but trapped." I cannot restore the power systems I damaged, so I cannot free them. The being paused, and the lights dimmed slightly. I wish to return to my own dimension, but the device that brought me here was destroyed in my panic. I do not know how to repair it with physical tools. Hyun-woo looked at the wreckage of the laboratory. Most of the equipment was beyond repair, melted or torn apart by electrical overload. "Show me the device," he said. "You cannot repair it," the being said. "It requires precise electronic calibration and advanced quantum field generators. All the sophisticated equipment is destroyed. Maybe, but let me look at it anyway." The living electricity guided them to another section of the lab, where the remains of the faster-than-light communication device lay scattered across several tables. It looked like a combination of advanced electronics and exotic materials that Hyun-woo had never seen before. But as he studied the wreckage, something occurred to him. "This device creates quantum entanglement between 2 points," he said. "Yes. It connects separated particles across any distance instantly." Word of the Kalos Station rescue spread through the academy even faster than the Ragnar 7 story. Now every student knew about the human cadet who solved problems with old tools and simple solutions. Some were impressed, others were still skeptical. But none of them laughed at his grandfather's backpack anymore. Hyun-woo found himself in an unusual situation. Alien students who had ignored him before now sought him out, asking questions about human survival techniques and primitive technology. Some wanted to learn, others just wanted to understand how such basic methods could work so well. "It's not really about the tools," he explained to a group of crystal aliens during lunch. "It's about the thinking behind the tools." "What do you mean?" asked Zixara, who had become something of a friend after their shared experience on Ragnar 7. "Advanced. Species create tools that solve specific problems perfectly. Humans create tools that solve many problems adequately." He pulled out his mechanical compass as an example. "This compass only does one thing: point north. It's not very accurate compared to your navigation systems, but it works anywhere, in any conditions, without power, and it never breaks." "So you choose reliability over capability?" asked another crystal alien. "We choose tools that work when everything else fails." Commander Velshin had been watching these discussions with interest. A week after the Kalos Station mission, Commander called Hyun-woo to a private meeting. "Cadet Kim," the commander said as Hyun-woo entered the office, "you have become quite famous among your classmates." "I just do what my grandfather taught me, sir." "Yes, your grandfather. Tell me about him." Hyun-woo sat down and thought about how to explain. "He was a soldier in the Korean War on Earth. He fought in places where supply lines were cut, communications were jammed, and technology failed. He learned to survive with basic tools and practical knowledge." "And he taught you these skills?" "Every summer, from when I was 5 until I left for the academy. Camping, hiking, building shelters, finding food, navigating without instruments. He said that comfortable people die when comfort disappears." Commander Velshin nodded slowly. "The galaxy has become very comfortable, Cadet. Most species have technology that provides for every need. They have eliminated discomfort, danger, and uncertainty from their lives. Is that bad? Not bad, but limiting. When faced with true crisis, comfortable people panic. They don't know how to adapt when their technology fails." The commander stood and walked to a window overlooking the Academy's training facilities. "Your final test approaches. The Titan Challenge. Only the best cadets attempt it, and many who try do not pass." "What is the Titan Challenge, sir?" "Infiltration and data recovery from a fully automated defense installation. The facility is designed to be impregnable. It has energy shields, robot defenders, scanning systems that can detect any electronic device, and an AI that learns from every intrusion attempt." Hyun-woo felt his stomach sink. This sounded much worse than surviving on a hostile planet or fixing a broken space station. Most cadets rely on advanced stealth technology, electronic warfare systems, or brute force energy weapons, Commander Velshin continued. These approaches rarely succeed. The facility's defenses are designed to counter advanced technology. How am I supposed to get past defenses like that? That, cadet, is what you must figure out. You will have 48 hours to infiltrate the facility, retrieve the data core, and escape. You may bring only standard equipment plus your one personal item. The commander turned back to face him. I am curious to see how human methods work against alien artificial intelligence. 3 days later, Hyun-woo found himself on a transport ship heading toward the Titan facility. This time he was alone. The final test was individual, not team-based. Only 12 cadets from his entire class had qualified to attempt the challenge. Through the ship's window, he could see the facility in the distance. It looked like a metal mountain rising from the surface of a barren asteroid. The structure was massive, with no visible entrances and a shimmering energy barrier surrounding the entire installation. Drop zone in 10 minutes, the pilot announced. Remember, this is a live-fire exercise. The facility's defenses are programmed to stop intruders with lethal force. If you get in trouble, activate your emergency beacon and we'll extract you. But activating the beacon means automatic failure. Hyun-woo checked his gear one more time. Standard academy equipment, basic rations, water, emergency medical kit, and communication device, plus his grandfather's backpack with all its simple tools and supplies. The transport dropped him on the asteroid's surface about 5 kilometers from the facility. As soon as he was on the ground, the ship departed, leaving him alone with the task ahead. The facility loomed in front of him like a technological fortress. The energy barrier flickered and pulsed, clearly powerful enough to vaporize anything that tried to pass through it. Sensor arrays covered the structure's surface, sweeping back and forth in constant surveillance patterns. Hyun-woo opened his grandfather's backpack and began planning his approach. The other cadets would probably try to use electronic countermeasures or advanced stealth technology. But the facility was designed to detect and defeat exactly those kinds of systems. He pulled out a small pair of binoculars, old-fashioned optical lenses, no electronics at all. Through them, he studied the facility's defenses more carefully. The energy barrier had gaps, not flaws in the system, but necessary openings for things like radiation vents and waste disposal. The gaps were small and moved constantly, but they existed. The sensor arrays were sophisticated, but they were looking for energy signatures, electronic devices, and movement patterns typical of advanced species. They might not be programmed to recognize more primitive approaches. From his backpack, Hyun-woo pulled out items that had seemed almost useless compared to alien technology. A ball of strong twine, a small folding grappling hook, a piece of black cloth, and a stick of charcoal. He spent 2 hours observing the facility's patterns. The energy barrier gaps followed a predictable cycle, random to casual observation, but with an underlying mathematical pattern. The sensor sweeps also had rhythms, areas of overlap, and brief blind spots. When he was ready, he began his approach. First, he used the charcoal to darken his face and hands, making himself harder to see against the dark asteroid rock. The black cloth went over his equipment to eliminate any reflective surfaces. Then he began moving toward the facility in a pattern that avoided the sensor sweeps. It took him 4 hours to cross 5 kilometers. He moved only when the sensors were looking elsewhere, freezing motionless when they swept his area. The approach was slow and tedious, but it worked. Electronic systems looked for things that moved like machines or like typical alien life forms. A human moving like a stalking animal was outside their programming parameters. At the base of the facility, he waited for the right moment. The energy barrier gap he had chosen appeared every 17 minutes and lasted for exactly 12 seconds. He had one chance to get through. When the gap opened, he threw his grappling hook through the barrier and climbed the rope as fast as possible. The hook caught on a maintenance port just inside the barrier, and he pulled himself through with 2 seconds to spare. Now he was inside the facility's outer perimeter, but that was just the beginning. The structure ahead was a maze of corridors, defense systems, and robot patrols. And somewhere deep inside was the data core he needed to retrieve. He consulted a paper map he had drawn based on architectural plans available in the Academy's database. Electronic maps would be detected instantly, but the facility's sensors weren't looking for pieces of paper. The route to the data core led through 3 levels of security. Each level had different types of defenses: energy barriers, robot patrols, scanning systems, and automated weapons. The facility's AI would learn from his intrusion attempt and adapt its defenses as he proceeded. From his backpack, he pulled out more simple tools: a small mirror for looking around corners, a bag of small stones for creating distractions, a length of fishing line for triggering traps from a safe distance, a tube of paste made from tree sap that could muffle sounds or create sticky surfaces. The first security level was guarded by robot patrols that moved in predictable patterns. The robots were sophisticated, with advance. The graduation ceremony was held in the Academy's largest hall, with representatives from dozens of worlds in attendance. Hyun-woo sat with his fellow cadets, wearing the dark blue uniform of a qualified Galactic Defense Academy graduate. His grandfather's backpack sat at his feet, as worn and patched as ever. Of the original 1,000 cadets who had started the program, only 200 had graduated. The rest had either failed the tests or decided that military service wasn't for them. It was a difficult program, designed to produce the best defenders the galaxy could offer. Commander Velshin stood at the podium, addressing the graduating class and their families. You have proven yourselves capable of facing the unknown and adapting to challenges that would defeat lesser individuals. You are ready to serve as protectors of civilization itself. The commander's eyes swept across the assembled graduates. But before we conclude this ceremony, I want to address something that has become apparent during your training. There is more than one way to solve problems. More than one path to success. Hyun-woo felt his classmates looking at him, and he tried not to squirm in his seat. For generations, Commander Velshin continued, we have believed that advancement meant complexity. Better tools, more sophisticated technology, more advanced solutions. And indeed, these things have value. But we have learned something else. The commander gestured toward a display screen that showed images from the various tests: the acid storms of Ragnar 7, the electromagnetic catastrophe at Kalos Station, the impregnable defenses of the Titan facility. When advanced technology fails, when sophisticated systems break down, when complexity becomes a liability rather than an asset, what remains? What can you depend on when everything else has let you down? The hall was completely silent. Even the alien dignitaries were listening intently. The answer, Commander Velshin said, is fundamental knowledge, basic skills, simple tools that work regardless of circumstances, and the wisdom to use them effectively. The commander looked directly at Hyun-woo. Cadet Kim, please join me on the stage. Hyun-woo felt his face get hot as hundreds of eyes turned toward him. He picked up his grandfather's backpack and made his way to the stage, trying not to trip over his own feet. Cadet Kim, the commander said as he reached the podium, would you please show everyone what you consider your most valuable piece of equipment? Hyun-woo held up the old canvas backpack. It looked even more worn and primitive next to the sleek technology that filled the ceremony hall. This backpack belonged to my grandfather, he said into the microphone, his voice echoing through the large space. He carried it during the Korean War on Earth, more than 60 years ago. Murmurs rippled through the audience. 60 years was ancient history by galactic standards. What makes this backpack special? Commander Velshin asked. Hyunwoo thought about how to explain. It's not the backpack itself. It's what my grandfather put in it and why he chose those things. He opened the main compartment and began pulling out items, laying them on a table beside the podium. The mechanical compass, the paper maps, the first aid supplies, the tools and repair kits, the fire-starting materials, the rope and canvas. My grandfather fought in places where supply lines were cut and technology didn't work, Hyunwoo explained. He learned to carry solutions for problems he couldn't predict. Not the best solution for specific problems, but adequate solutions for any problem. Commander Velshin picked up the mechanical compass. This device is less accurate than modern navigation systems. Yes, sir. But it works anywhere, in any conditions, without power, and it never breaks. And this? The commander held up a coil of rope. It can secure shelters, create climbing aids, make traps, tie down equipment, or be unraveled for smaller cordage. One tool, many uses. The commander nodded and addressed the audience again. During the Crucible trial on Ragnar 7, when an electromagnetic pulse disabled all advanced technology, Cadet Kim's mechanical tools continued to function. He navigated by compass, built shelter with canvas and rope, and purified water with manual methods. Images appeared on the display screen showing the improvised shelter that had saved 40 cadets during the electromagnetic storm. At Kalos Station, when sophisticated quantum equipment failed, Cadet Kim repaired the damage with basic electronics, a radio, some magnets, and wire. Simple components, but they solved a complex problem. More images. The jury-rigged device that had sent the energy being back to its own dimension. And finally, at the Titan facility, Cadet Kim succeeded where advanced infiltration technology had failed. He used manual tools, analog methods, and mechanical devices to bypass defenses, designed to stop electronic warfare. The final images showed the facility's massive defenses and the maintenance passages that had made infiltration possible. Commander Velshin set down the compass and looked out at the audience. What we have learned from Cadet Kim is not that primitive technology is superior to advanced technology. Both have their place. What we have learned is the value of diversity in our approaches to problems. The commander paused and looked around the hall. Advanced civilizations tend to converge on similar solutions. We all develop energy weapons, force fields, quantum computers, and matter reorganizers. These tools are powerful and effective under normal circumstances. But what happens when circumstances are not normal? What happens when your energy weapons lose power, your force fields fail, your quantum computers are scrambled by interference, and your matter reorganizers break down? The hall was completely silent, except for the sound of breathing and shifting. Clothing. Cadet Kim's grandfather understood something that we had forgotten. The commander continued. Resilience comes from redundancy, reliability comes from simplicity, and survival comes from being prepared for failure. Commander Velshin picked up Hyunwoo's backpack. This old pack represents a philosophy that we need to remember. The philosophy that says, plan for things to go wrong, prepare for the unexpected, and carry solutions that will work when everything else fails. The commander handed the backpack back to Hyun-woo. Cadet Kim, you have taught us all an important lesson. Your classmates have learned from your example. Many now carry backup equipment, manual tools, mechanical devices, and simple solutions, alongside their advanced technology. It was true. After the events on Ragnar 7 and Kalos Station, many cadets had started packing emergency gear that didn't depend on power or sophisticated systems. Compasses, maps, basic tools, and simple medical supplies had become popular additions to standard equipment loadouts. But more importantly, Commander Velshin said, you have taught us that advancement is not always about complexity. Sometimes advancement means finding simpler, more reliable ways to solve problems. Sometimes the most sophisticated approach is to use unsophisticated tools. The commander turned to address the full graduating class. As you leave this academy and begin your service in the Galactic Defense Force, remember the lessons you have learned here. Use the best tools available for each situation, but always have a backup plan that assumes your best tools will fail. Be prepared for technology to break, systems to malfunction, and sophisticated solutions to become unavailable. When that happens, fall back on fundamental knowledge, basic skills, and simple tools that you can trust completely. The commander smiled slightly, or as Cadet Kim's grandfather might have said, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and be ready for something completely different. The ceremony concluded with the presentation of graduation certificates and assignments to various defense force units. Hyun-woo was assigned to the Emergency Response Division, where his unconventional problem-solving skills would be most useful. As the new graduates mingled with families and friends after the ceremony, many of Hyun-woo's classmates approached him. Aliens who had once mocked his primitive equipment now asked to examine his grandfather's tools and learn about human survival techniques. Could you teach us some of these methods? Zixara asked. I want to learn backup skills in case my technology fails. Of course, Hyun-woo said. My grandfather always said that knowledge shared is knowledge doubled. Velnera, his teammate from multiple missions, held up a small canvas pack she had acquired. I got this from the Academy supply store. It's not as old as yours, but it's the same basic design. Could you help me pack it properly? I'd be happy to. Even Thek Moore, the bug alien who had originally dismissed human methods as primitive, asked to join the conversation. My species has been spacefaring for 10,000 years, he said. But we never developed backup systems for when our primary technology fails. I think we need to learn this. Commander Velshin approached the group of students. Cadet Kim, I have a proposal for you. Sir? The Academy wants to develop a new course, Fundamental Survival Skills, basic techniques that work regardless of technology level or environmental conditions. Would you be interested in helping design the curriculum? Hyun-woo thought about it, teaching other cadets the skills his grandfather had taught him, passing on the knowledge that had served him so well. I think my grandfather would like that, he said.